What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Get Back Guys. Al and I back here again, getting the coaches back, telling them what to do.
Yep.
We had a fun break week in the NBA, and the off season's about to get going for the NFL. So we're going to talk a little bit about the All-Star game and some predictions, and then get into just kind of talking about NFL people being cut, things like that. So we'll start with the NBA here. Alex, what was your reaction to the All-Star game, the slaughter, Team LeBron?
Didn't watch it. Normally I usually watch the game. Didn't watch this year. Didn't want to. I've always loved the show they put on. I like the celebrity game, the dunk contest. I saw clips, but outside of that, I just didn't watch. I tuned in a little bit from updates on the team LeBron was just slaughtering, and LeBron talked. He's always wanted to play with Steph. Finally got his chance, and
yeah, that was
I
cool.
just like seeing that, those guys talking about each other and talking about how good everybody is. Some PG was saying some stuff about going back on any disrespect he's put out on Dame after what Dame was doing in the All-Star game. So the game was fine. I mean, and you normally kind of prefer that game to just be fun, more like a Globetrotter game you go to than anything else. But it was cool. I mean, it sometimes gets chippy at the end and in past games if it's been close because they start to actually try to play, but this wasn't ever close. It was just kind of fun time, and I liked it. The fact that Embiid and Ben had to miss because they were near a barber that got they went to a barber that got exposed to COVID or whatever, or tested positive, is a bummer, but it was chill. And I really don't have a whole lot to say about it.
Yeah, it is kind of a bummer that they didn't get to play. Obviously, Anthony Davis was out, Kevin Durant's out, so that's a lot of marquee players who weren't there, and LeBron's just so good at drafting. I don't know how the other teams are so bad at drafting. Like, I understand why
Giannis drafted,
and not except KD was this year.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. It was KD you drafted this year.
Yeah, Giannis was the last couple of years, but still, it's just tough to see them keep not drafting good teams, and LeBron just takes it away. I mean, obviously LeBron gets the best player every year because he gets himself, but besides that, but yeah, it was, All-Star game's All-Star game. It's fun to watch him play. It's fun to watch Steph and Dame bomb half-court three-pointers basically, and it's cool that Giannis was 16 for 16 or something like that in the All-Star game. That was cool. So and also, so that was that. That's basically it for the All-Star game. Just fun. I wish we could have seen the other players because they deserve to be on the court. They've earned it. But Kevin Durant's been there so many times.
NBA does have the best kind of star All-Star Pro Bowl type game
Definitely
of all the sports. Bam and Jimmy should have been there.
Well, DeMar should have been there above those two even.
Get out of here.
Especially over Mike Conley. But anyways, let's go into quick. I'm curious, so we can kind of judge these picks at the All-Star break, kind of the halfway point. We get a reset here. Who is your picks to represent the East and Western Conference? And then give me who you think is going to win the finals. Give me a game count. Who do you have as of the All-Star break?
So in the East, I'll start. I want to say my Heat. I think they do have a real shot. They've got to figure out whatever the heck's going on. They got to
figure out a lot here.
But they have started to play really good basketball. They've started to get really consistent because they're starting to get consistent and their guys are staying. I think we're going to make a big move at the trade deadline again. Possibly, but if not, my Heat, if I'm not being a biased fan. I really do think it's going to end up being the Nets, which bums me out. But I don't see the 76ers or the Bucks. I definitely don't see the Celtics, and the Knicks are already in a pipe dream, the fact that they're in 5th at the All-Star break. I don't see any of them beating the Nets in a 7-game series. The Nets have way too much firepower. We saw it every year with Golden State where a team might get close. A couple teams took them to 7. And then at the end of the day, the Stars loaded up and they couldn't
Only
be beat.
One team took them to 7 even. just the
Yeah.
Rockets when they were
And
healthy.
with Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin's been added, which I wanted Blake down in Miami just as a solid kind of lob guy, decent defender who can try to do something, who's been through 80 surgeries, but the Nets took him. They need a little bit more depth with KD and Harden, but I just don't see a team beating them. I don't see the 76ers being able. Nobody's got the firepower to stop them. Honestly, I think the Heat might have the best roster to stop them in the East, but we're so inconsistent out of there that I just don't know if we can do that. But because I don't think any of the other teams play defensively as hard as we do. But the Bucks, Giannis is going to take on KD, and then who's taking on everybody else? Like who's
Drew
stopping
Holiday.
Harden?
Drew Holiday's one of the better defenders at guard, but they
like
they
Drew
don't guard
Holiday,
the
but I
3
just
point
don't
pretty well.
Can't do it. So it's got to be the Nets. Who do you got in the East?
So I also have the Nets. And I think the team that is closest is actually the 76ers. Matchup wise, defensively, Ben Simmons, if you saw it, they actually lost this game, but when they played the Blazers, probably like a month ago at this point, Ben Simmons at the end of that game just Dame couldn't do anything against him because he was so dominant defensively. And while Ben Simmons is a problem offensively for them, he can definitely compete with Harden in a series and slow Harden down. But if KD's healthy, I think they win it. Joel Embiid would have to be he would have to be completely healthy and be dominant in that series because they don't really have anyone to guard him either. Blake Griffin doesn't fill that role. Kevin Durant's too undersized, and DeAndre Jordan's too old to really fill that role defensively against Joel Embiid.
Get that he's there.
Yeah, they just need Chris Paul and they got Lob City back there now that they've got Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan. But I do see the Nets going out. I think Blake Griffin's a nice piece. What's funny is he's the only player in the NBA to have a certain amount of shot attempts to have no dunks. He has not dunked this year. A weird stat showing you how
that is weird.
How different
6'7", 6'8". Just go get up.
Yeah, well,
there,
he's the only. Yeah, the only player who's 6'7" or above who hasn't had dunk yet this year. I would not be shocked if his first game with the Nets that changes because no one's going to be paying any attention to Blake Griffin when you have all of those stars on the court.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Nets firepower is just going to be too much and they still could add another piece or two. But for right now, I'll take them. The 76ers, I think, could compete. The Bucks too, if Giannis is able to dominate and KD takes a step back in a playoff series for some reason, potentially, those are the only other two teams I see really putting a scare potentially into the Nets. The Celtics would need to make a big splash to even get close. I think they're just not good enough. And I think the same thing with the Heat. They would need to make a splash. They would need to pick up a Victor Oladipo type guy to compete
consistent.
with the Fire. Yeah, so Nets for sure for me. Who do you have out of the West?
So let me pull
same
the.
team.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be the same. Yeah, it's the Lakers. Who's stopping the King? I love the King. Number 6 for Miami at the time. Back in the day, I miss him. The Jazz holding on to the 1 seed right now. Suns are up there, and the Suns are fun. They're looking good. Yeah. No one's a threat. Anthony Davis comes back. No one's a threat. This team is better than they were last year. I think the roster looks better. Alex Caruso's gotten time to develop a little more. I think it's clearly the Lakers. And I actually think the Lakers don't. I think when you look up on paper, I don't think the Lakers roster wins against the Nets. I think you take them to 7 though, and the Lakers win that. It's different than when it was Golden State. LeBron's got Anthony Davis. And I'll tell you this, Kyrie Irving and LeBron James meet in the NBA Finals on opposite teams. LeBron is going to be ticked off after all these comments and things that have been coming out lately. And he said it's hurt him a little bit. LeBron just literally keeps putting chips on his shoulder. I don't get why he keeps doing it, but he keeps doing it because he's that amazing. And he I think the Lakers will most likely win the championship again and repeat. It bums me out because I just get tired of the same franchises winning with the Lakers, and they've been so dominant in history. But I will never not root
Better
for
than the
LeBron
Celtics.
James because I love true. I love LeBron James. I will ride and die with LeBron James. He brought me 2 rings. I can't ever feel differently. Who do you got?
Well, I have Lakers. Obviously, I was on the Laker train all of last year. People were telling me they don't have enough depth at guard, and that didn't matter an ounce. They still cruise to a championship. And I think, obviously, it depends on if AD is healthy. If Anthony Davis is not healthy, they are going to LeBron's going to have to play 2018 ball if he's going to lift this Lakers team up to the finals. But Anthony Davis, I think, will be healthy by the time. Yeah, they're just resting him right now. So I have them. I still probably think the biggest threat to them getting out of there is the Clippers. But the Clippers are the same team they were last year, and yeah, they should have been a Western Conference team last year if Kawhi Leonard and Paul George didn't implode. And so if that doesn't happen this year, then I think they probably make it to the Western Conference Finals, depending on how the bracket turns out. They might meet the Lakers in round 2. I think that's a possibility. The Suns, they're good. Devin Booker, if they were to make it to the finals, would have to take a huge leap from borderline all-star. He was an all-star last couple years to bona fide superstar, which I doubt is going to happen in the next handful of months. And I think the Jazz, Mavericks, Blazers, Spurs, they're all good teams, but they're not great teams. So really, I think the main competition there is the Clippers still, but I don't think the Clippers got any better, and I think the Lakers did, and I think the Lakers were better all along, and that was shown last year when they blew a 3-1 lead. So I have the Lakers winning the finals against the Nets in 6. But let's be honest, the finals we all want is the Lakers Nets. Oh, wouldn't want to watch?
I don't want
that series.
I want Miami and LA to battle it out again, and I want Jimmy Butler to beat them.
Obviously,
that's what I want.
Obviously, I want my Spurs to go there, but from just like a basketball perspective,
right, you take it out. Fine.
I want to watch LeBron and Anthony Davis go up against KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. That would be so incredible.
At the end of the day, just want Bron versus Kyrie. Yeah, that alone, I want. Awesome. I've seen the rest. I want
this. That talent-wise, the Nets are not far. It's not like what you said, the 2017 Cavs Warriors, where the Warriors were so much better, even though LeBron had Kyrie and Kevin Love. These teams are incredibly close talent-wise, and it would shape up, I think, to be the best finals we've had since 2016. Or taking that out, because 2016 was arguably the best finals we've ever had, but even like the Spurs finals with the Heat, it's that kind of a matchup where they're both dominant and clearly both the best teams in the league. And so I hope that's what we get. And I think if we do get it, my guess would be Lakers in 6.
I'd go with that. When is the trade deadline?
I believe it's March 25th. So we get football next week, and then the week after that we get basketball. The teams to keep an eye on, we talked about the Rockets last week. Magic are another team who have a lot of good players, but they're I think second to last in the East right now, so they could be selling.
Who's their big guy that
Vucevic?
Heat are linked to him.
Yeah, Spurs are also linked to him. He's a really quality player. Aaron Gordon is also a potential trade candidate. He would be awesome for a lot of contending teams. So I'm excited about the trade deadline, but we're kind of a week away from really kind of shaping up what I think is going to end up happening. I'm guessing the Rockets are going to trade everybody.
Yeah.
But any last thoughts on NBA here?
Go Heat.
Go Spurs. By the time this episode airs, the Spurs will have played the Mavericks in the doubleheader to start play back up after the All-Star break.
You play tonight?
Yep.
First tomorrow.
Yeah, well, the Spurs start earlier because the Spurs had so many games off them and the Grizzlies that they had to pack them in, because we have 41 games or something like that. We have more than most teams. Most teams are in the 30s. So that's going to be a fun and tough schedule. But shifting gears to NFL, because this is we're finally getting to exciting stuff. And this is going to be one of the most chaotic free agency periods I feel like we've seen in a while.
Yeah.
The cap was set today at 182.5 million, which is about 15 million less than last year. And we've already started to see players go.
Yeah. Or deals being
Yep.
changed. A lot happens. Saints, Philly are top 3 in the worst in the cap. And immediately, already before we were redoing deals, and now immediately everybody's being redone and whatnot.
Yeah, and so it's going to be really interesting to see. The 15th is when we're going to start hearing where players are able to negotiate. I think a lot of players already know where they're going to end up going, so that'll be when you start to hear things. So in the next couple of days, you're going to see a ton of cuts to see where your teams go, and a lot of restructures. And there could be a ton of really quality players who had slight down years who all of a sudden just don't have a team because teams can't afford people who are regressing to be on contracts like they used to. And so we saw that with the Saints. Alexander and Emmanuel Sanders released, but even someone like John Brown was released for the Bills. And so
I didn't see that.
Yeah, John Brown got released, saved him $8 million. So the receiving, even though we saw obviously the franchise tags came in, Allen Robinson and Chris Godwin, two of the top receivers are off the list, but the receiving is still really deep, headlined by Kenny Galladay. But now you add John Brown to that list. A lot of potential. I don't know what kind of salary a player like John Brown would demand, but my guess is only a couple $1 million, which means he's gonna, a lot of teams are gonna be able to get bargain free agents. And so, what are your kind of thoughts on this? Yeah,
it's something that puts Philly in a unique position because Philly can offer snaps for a low contract. So a guy like John Brown or even a young, not saying he's super linked to us, but like Kenny Galladay can look and go, look, I'm gonna get a ton of snaps and then I can give up my big contract. It's basically what we did in 2016. But what's also interesting about the cap being lowered because of COVID is obviously awful this year, but it would most likely, it had been trending up about $9 to $10 million every year. So if the cap had gone up, like Philly would have only been about 15 over currently instead of 30. Same with the Saints or other teams. But what this also does is because so many teams, the teams that are over the cap or just barely under the cap, are suddenly going to have a lot of money next year because they're saving hard this year. It's just kind of how the world's gone right now. And that weirdly gets me excited if we can figure out our quarterback situation and kind of get a few pieces together, some young guys develop, then boom, we get a ton of cash and you're right back in it. That's the first thing I kind of think of just in free agency as a whole. So many players available. Guys are going to have to take small deals. You're going to have to go play and earn a big contract next year when all this money floods back in, or take a year off for guys maybe who have been hurt quite a bit and things like that. But it's interesting players. I feel bummed about John Brown. I didn't realize that. So I wonder if they're going to make a move
good in a Philly uniform.
It's true if he can be healthy, but
well, you guys are in an interesting position because all of a sudden you're going to get 33 million off of your cap next year, just gone. That's there this year. So I could definitely see you guys just trying to clear space, and then next year you're going to be able to get a ton of people if you want to.
Well, from what I'm seeing is that Philly will be in a position to sign some serious free agents this year, and then next year still end up with quite a bit of cash. So we're not in a horrible position. Luckily enough, like some other, like I see the -30 and I get all nervous, but we redid deals. Isaac Seumalo has redone deals. Apparently Brandon Brooks is available. Do not trade Brandon Brooks. He's done nothing but be the best guard in football when his Achilles is healthy. My goodness. Oh, you would love a Brandon Brooks. The guy is an absolute animal. I do not want him gone. I honestly, I'd keep him over most of the linemen on the team. But, I don't know. I just got to rant. Howie Roseman, you watched an atrocious O-line and everybody get hurt. Why are you suddenly going to trade the guys who got hurt? I mean, Brandon Brooks tore his Achilles. It's it's not an injury that happens all the time. It's kind of a fluke injury, and it rarely ever happens a second time. And so there's no reason to trade a guy who's coming off he's the best by PFF right guard in football over the last 4 years when he's played. He's that good. He's bulked up. Why would you get rid of him? Are you kidding me? Redo deals, get Alshon out of here. Zach Ertz, apparently we go for, if we trade Zach Ertz or cut him before June 1st, it saves us $4 million. If we cut Ertz after June 1st, it saves us almost $8 million. And apparently Zach does not want to wait that long, which is fair. But I want him to wait that long because I want that $8 million. But anyway, what you got? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about this is I wonder how many players are going to take prove it deals. Take a 1 year prove it deal and try to get that big contract next year, because the money's just not going to be there for a lot of these people in the market. So I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that plays out. If we're going to see players ring chase for a year, go to a good team and say, hey, as long as I can have playing time, let me play here with a good team, good organization, and I'm going to try to earn myself a big payday, because it's not quite there. It would have been right if the salary cap went up, but instead it went down. So that will be really interesting to see how many players do that, or how many bargains teams are going to get. Are good teams going to be able to get enough talent to compete with kind of the Bucks and the Chiefs? Will be really interesting to me. And I'm just excited. I love free agency. And the thing I'm most excited about is to see where Russell Wilson goes.
Real quick before we get there.
Really?
I think the smart thing for teams is to go get the bargains, not the big names. Don't go get an Aaron Jones. Don't go do that. Go get a bargain. Go get a Marlon Mack. Go get some of these linebackers that are that are very good players, but they're not huge superstars who are young. I think that's not only the key to Philly. I just think it's key overall for this year with a low cap. Go get the bargain deals for a couple mil. And then if you're an average team next year, be an average team, get another decent pick, one more draft, and then you'll have a ton of money. Boom. You can then sign a couple big stars. You got all the pieces together, and boom, you're ready to go. That's what I think. But anyway, you wanted to talk danger Wilson.
I'm curious what you think about Russ. It seems as the days go on, it seems more and more likely that he is going to get dealt, which is just absolutely insane, especially in a year where the cap goes down 15 million. If he forces his way out, and then all of a sudden 40 million of dead cap for the Seahawks for a player that's not going to play for them, it is going to be pretty insane for a team that was a playoff team. And, it's not like he played that well against the Rams, right? Like, it's not like he was dominant against them. I would say he definitely deserves a pretty big part of the blame why they lost to their division rival in the wild card round. So I don't know. I'm curious to see. I think he's gone. I don't know how he's going to go back. What do you think? Do you think they're going to trade him or not? And if so, where do you think he'll go?
It feels exactly like what happened with Wentz and the whole ordeal. It was like, do we really believe all this? It keeps coming out. It keeps coming. It keeps coming. It goes away for a week or two, and then it comes back, and it comes back, and then boom, he's gone. And I think he's going to be dealt. I think he'll be dealt for a lot of picks. The report today said Chicago is offering an absurd amount of draft picks for either Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson.
They're desperate.
And I get it. Russ is that type of player. The fact that Russell Wilson went from kind of the golden boy who would never do such a thing to I want some say in the lineman you bring in, to Seattle saying we're not going to give you that, because the first report said he just wanted some say on linemen and player personnel that was coming in. And they had to have said no, or he had to have demanded. It had to be something absurd for this to all continue to fall out of proportion. And I do want to point this out and shout out to the greatest get back guy of them all, former host of the show, Kyle. He said the other day in our big chat yesterday about how why would Russ want to go to a team like the Saints or the Panthers or the Bears or the Raiders? And, the Jacksonville Jaguars know if we get Russ, he's just going to complain. He's not going to take away his no trade clause to come here. We don't have a roster good enough. Some of these teams have a decent roster to say, hey, I can maybe take a year off and then build something great. I think is Russ's point. But this idea, our buddy Kyle pointed out that Russ is going to want power at any of these teams. Russ will not ask for power from any of these teams because you don't build up cred in a job to then want out and go to a new job and then say, I want the same cred. You can't do that. You have to build it up. You can't do it off name alone. You can't be the best all the time and come in. Tom Brady can in a way, but Tom Brady didn't say, I want power. Bruce Arians went to Tom and said, what do you think? That's a coach move. If the coaches say that that's going to happen, then that's one thing. But I don't think Russell Wilson is going to say, look, I'm not going to go to, if the Seahawks are coming to Russ and saying, look, the Bears are offering us 5 first-round draft picks, their next 5 first-round draft picks, something absurd. And Russ says, no, well, can I have power over there? And they said, no, you're not going to be involved in the personnel decision. Then what is Russ going to do? Hold out all year next year and leave Seattle out because he didn't get the power he wanted? You know how the narrative of Russ will completely change if he is just constantly going power hungry, and our buddy Kyle's focused on that too much. And I just don't think that's it. I think he's just looking to get out of there. I just think he's tired of Seattle. I think they ran their shtick and it doesn't work anymore. They really weren't that great last year. And when they had their great defensive stretch, they played awful quarterbacks. It was like Christian Hackenberger, Sam Darnold, Wentz last year, Goff, who wasn't playing great, and there were 2 other no names I can't even think of. Like they played awful QBs who were not that great. And so I think he's seeing the writing on the wall. He's seeing what Brady's doing. He saw what Peyton did, and he's saying, why am I here still? You're not giving me any control. You don't talk to me at all. Get me out of here.
Yeah, I don't think it's the control as much. And that's a common thing. My microphone's going crazy here.
You're all right now.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're good. You're good.
My things are going wild.
Now you're going wild again.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Is it all right?
You're good. Keep going.
All right. So I think I don't think Russ is, really planning on making all of these personnel changes. I think he just wants to be able to throw the football more. I don't think he wants to be a run first team. He wants to be a pass first team. I think that is where it comes from. I think he wants to sling the ball, and he wants people to sit through the terrible interceptions he'll throw because he thinks that he just needs to work through it, and he'll be able to be that high volume guy that he was for the first 5 games or really 4 games of the year. So I think he just wants out of Seattle. I also think he wants to play in a different market. I think Sierra is probably sick of it.
That was the
it
rumors
is really interesting.
A year ago when he signed a new contract, and then he signed a new contract, and everybody's like, "Oh, clearly that's not a big deal. Clearly it had played a part."
Yeah, if Aaron Rodgers did this, the media would be tearing him apart. If he was,
it really sounds
a lot like, it really sounds a lot like Kawhi and his uncle in his camp. It's the exact same. It is actually
Kawhi
the exact
in New York hanging out.
Because Kawhi is this quiet dude who everyone thought was, just wanted to play ball. And then all of a sudden Kawhi said, no, I want to go to Los Angeles. I want to go to where I grew up. And the Spurs said, well, we'll trade you because clearly you want out of here. And you just decided not to play. They trade him. And then after a year, he goes and he goes to LA. Feels like a similar thing going on. Well, he did win a ring, but
Russ is not going to win a ring with the Bears his first year back if he goes.
No.
To the Bears.
And the Kawhi situation is a little different because he won a ring against a team that was missing, 3 of their top 5 players.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit different. I don't think they win a ring if they're healthy. They probably lose in four or five games. But anyways, it is kind of similar to just the personality types. I think Russ wants out, and I think he's going to get traded in the next few weeks. And I
What's
wouldn't be shocked
crazy-
if he gets traded in the next few days. I think it could come out of
An
nowhere.
hour.
Yeah.
And what stinks for a man named Deshaun Watson is Russ has taken over all your leverage and media coverage. No one's talking about you that much because Russ is
Yeah.
considered the better player. And
Which I don't even agree with. I'd rather.
I think
have
they're
Watson.
pretty close, but Watson's age makes it hard not to want to take him. If you're the
Watson's
Seahawks,
ceiling
why do
is
you
so much
not
higher.
if you're the Seahawks, you got to talk to Houston. I've been saying it, but it's probably because Russ is saying I'm not waiving my trade clause to go to Houston.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why.
Him with the Raiders would make sense, but you've got to get some sort of draft capital in return. The thing about the Bears is the Bears are probably going to be a mid team. So 5 first-round picks is just, 3 first-round picks is
Doesn't
just
matter.
is 15, 14, 18, 20.
Yeah,
It's-
the Bears
they'd have
are,
to fall off with Russ if he went there for the Seahawks to think they're going to get some serious capital back.
Yeah,
The Saints would be good, but they can't afford him right now.
yeah. So I don't think because the Cowboys are out of it because of Dak.
Yeah.
And his contract. So
Good
those
for
were the 4
Dak getting his
teams.
money, even though I don't like
Yeah.
the Cowboys, but good for Dak getting that money.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the best contracts ever in NFL history.
Mhm.
If not the best. But on terms of the teams on his list, Cowboys are out. Raiders I think Raiders have the best potential chance because if they sent Derek Carr is a borderline top 10 quarterback, and I think he would be really good in that Seattle run heavy system. Yeah, top 15 for sure. I think he has the potential to be around like a Kirk Cousins, right on that edge of top 10, right?
Yeah.
But he would be the only, Seattle is either going to want at least a starting caliber quarterback or a high draft capital where they know they can get a young prospect. That's something that the Bears can't offer. And because the Raiders are already on the list, I don't know why Seattle would take a Bears offer for, even if it was 4 first-round picks.
And
because-
Mac.
Yeah, and Mac. That's, you think that's a lot, but they don't have a quarterback. They need at least someone. And they're not going to get it with the Bears' current draft pick because they made the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And so that's why
Because you'd have to go spend more picks just to then move up to get your QB you want.
Exactly.
They're just in a weird position.
So the Bears just don't seem like they have enough firepower to do it. And that's why I think we haven't seen the Bears get Watson. They very well could, because there might actually not be better offers and other teams might not be offering them enough. Or Russ could say, I only want to go to the Bears. And same with Watson. But the reason I think we haven't, I think the Bears have called both of them and said, here's 3 first-round draft picks and a player or 2 for this guy. And both of them have said, we need at least some insurance that we're going to have someone play quarterback that isn't Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky.
Or Geno
Right.
Smith, who's the
Yeah.
backup in Seattle.
Exactly. So that's why I think the Bears
I think.
haven't got one made yet. I'd still be on the lookout for the Jets or Dolphins. I know they weren't on the list for Russ, but I think Russ would go play at either. I think he sees what's being built there. And so he would need a little bit of confirmation for them shoring up the offensive line, because they both don't have very good offensive lines. But it would be something that it would be enough.
You're
Dar-
tech today, man.
Or a high Jets draft pick would be enough. Would be a kind of a package around a couple other picks.
What do the Jets have? The
to-
4th pick? 2nd pick?
Yeah, they
Something
have
like
a high. Yeah, and if they
Top
sent
5?
Darnold, yeah, well, they've got a top 5. I think they have 3, maybe.
that? The Jets have
Yeah,
the 3rd pick, you think? Yeah, I think so. I think Dolphins are at 4. Yeah,
yeah.
I think you're right.
Or Bengals are at 5,
Yeah.
right?
They're top
Um,
4 draft pick.
Yeah, so and the Dolphins can give him multiple picks in this draft and Tua if they wanted. So there's
Yeah.
other places I think that would be able to offer potential quarterback replacements because Tua would also be a great, seems like he'd be a perfect Seattle quarterback.
Better than Darnold, and I like Sam Darnold kind of.
Yeah,
But,
and
yeah.
if they don't like Tua, they could say, well, you can have Russ and give us this pick, and if we like a quarterback in this draft, we'll get a quarterback. We'll save ourselves a ton of money starting next year once we get the huge dead cap.
And
hit
look,
on,
if you're
and we'll be ready to go.
If you're a young, if like let's say it's Sam Darnold or Tua, a young quarterback in the league, you're happy going to Seattle. Great coach. Couple good defensive players, some great defensive players, and you've got Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf.
Yeah. One of the best receiving cores in the league with DK and Tyler. DK is just going to get better. You have a team that was willing to trade for a top 3 safety in the league and has a top middle linebacker in the league. Like it's not like the Seattle Seahawks have no pieces. I understand that Russ is upset that they haven't given him offensive linemen, but they've given him throughout his tenure in Seattle.
I mean, he walked into one of the best defenses. Yeah. He walked into it.
One of the best running backs in the league at the time. He's always had a very decent receiving core. Now it's arguably better than it's ever been, looking to be going into this next year with Tyler Lockett still at a decent age and DK looking to just get better. So I don't know where he's going to go where they're going to be better than this Seahawks team that's going to be able to trade enough, right?
Yeah.
But I do think he's going to leave. I think he's going to.
I'll say this. I saw a stat that says Russ has the most clutch moments in the NFL or something like that by a good margin. It was something like that. It was like clutch touchdowns or something. I can't fully remember. And I remember it was wide. And I remember thinking, look, I want that in my quarterback. I want them in the big moments to have to come up clutch. But this to me, I remember reading that stat and the gap was so big. I was like, that to me says that I put my quarterback in a bad position. And that is on a coach a little bit because you do want him to be able to do that.
Philosophy.
It drives me nuts. But you shouldn't, as a coach, try to put them in bad positions.
I mean, it's kind of true, but also when you think about it, that stat is going to count for Russell Wilson's game-winning touchdown against the Green Bay Packers in 2014. You know what Russ did before that? He threw 4 interceptions and no touchdowns.
Yeah,
so
I'm just saying, I'm ranting.
Their philosophy is saying we can win despite our quarterback playing horrifically, but we can also win if our quarterback plays good. So I understand the criticisms of him, but also that stat is obviously Russell Wilson is a fantastic player, but that stat is also very much the kind of football that Seattle plays. The only way you can't make a comeback if your defense also doesn't start playing good either, which is what other quarterbacks don't have the luxury of having had such a good defense for most of his career.
Yeah,
but yeah. I just don't know where he's going to go. That's going to be immediately better. I don't think there's a place that he goes that team's going to be better than it would be Seattle this year. And he's put Seattle in such a bad position where they're going to have to trade him, or if they try to give him what he wants and they don't end up winning because he's not better than Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady and they're going to beat him in the playoffs, then he's just going to force his way out again and put the Seahawks in an even worse position. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens though. I'm excited to see
the next few weeks.
Fun.
Going to be fun.
Yeah, exactly. So do you have any other thoughts here?
No, sir.
I don't either. I think it's just going to be our next episode is going to be pretty exciting, reacting to all of the free agent moves.
Yeah. Hopefully we get some crazy stuff. So
yeah.
Looking
forward to it. Well, I guess that's it for us today on the Get Back, guys. And make sure to subscribe, all of those things on all the platforms. And we'll see you next time.
Go Heat.
Go Spurs.